welcome everybody to a special Tuesday night edition of Freedom Reigns. And tonight we have, as promised, Mr. L.B. Bork, author of The Red Amendment and also founder of PAC, People's Awareness Coalition. Tonight we're going to take a little different turn. We had a guest on last night and kind of co-hosted with me, Jose. But tonight we're going to let Jose take the reins. And we're going to let him run the show, run the whole interview. We're not going to take any callers tonight, though. But we will take questions from the chat room, which can be found on our website at freedomreigns.us under chat. Anyways, Jose, welcome. You are our newest host in training, and I'm very honored to be the one here with you this evening.
Thank you, Deatra. I'm very happy to be here with you all. We have some very good subjects to talk about tonight. Thank you, Chris, for all the questions. I have a friend of mine here. He'll be listening live, so if you guys hear a little bit of an echo, that's why. I'm not using the headphones. I'm only using the mic off the headphones.
Wow. Okay. Well, I will watch the chat room. I know you've got questions that were emailed over to us, and I'm going to let you run with this. Lawrence is also here with us tonight to help bring his insight and knowledge and wisdom to all of this. So, LB, Lawrence, welcome to you guys also.
Thank you, Deatra. Hello, LB.
Okay.
Hey, evening, guys.
Good evening, LB.
Good evening.
Good evening, Lawrence.
Good evening.
How you doing?
I'm doing real good.
All right. Well, LB, we had a very interesting night last night. We had some excellent questions asked to come out of the chat room. Tonight, we have a continuation of those questions. Our good friend Chris says he would like this asked of you. It's a very interesting question, but he's got a comment first. He says, chastising people for wanting to get out of the system simply because they recognize that taxation is paramount to slavery, and I believe he means financial slavery, seems a little short-sighted to me. While unconstitutional taxation without constitutional appropriation is not at the top of my personal list of reasons, it still easily makes my top 5, each of which I consider a more than valid reason of their own merit individually. How would you respond to that, LB?
I've been hit with that a lot of times, but excuse me, but I just look at it as self-centeredness, and most of the people, like I tried to put out yesterday, that yes, the money system is slavery, and maybe Lawrence could jump in here after I finish about that subject, but the way I look at it, everyone I've met in this movement in the last 15 years is pretty much self-centered and just cares about themselves. And using that as evidence, and from where people are coming from, they don't care about their kids. They don't care about tomorrow. The people that we're seeing come awake in the last couple of years are more into what they should be worried about is, their children's future and things of that nature. But I'm telling you, most of the people, the last 15, 20 years I've been in this, have been all about themselves and keeping the money for themselves. They don't care about their neighbor. So
right. It's
not short-sighted, in my opinion.
Okay. He has a few bullet points. The first one is, he says, being guilty of helping to prop up a system bent on oppression and murder by his consent, and that would be probably by all our consents.
Well, these are things that, yes, you should think about, and I'm just telling you what I've witnessed in the past 20 years. And the things are a lot deeper. Our natural rights and the future of your children should be the first thing, and taking care of your neighbor. And no one really thinks of that. They're just looking at what's in it for me, So,
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to support other things. I have a friend in town here that went to school to be a professor of socialism. He knows Marxism pretty well, and he knows the good points of Marx. Marx did have some good points, but he was commandeered by the Illuminati, and I think he was one of them actually. To be truthful, of course, every social or societal program or social contract or compact is going to have good and bad points in it. So even Marxism, I'm not trying to say Marxism's good or communism's good, but it is going to have some positive points, just like everything else would, every other program. But understanding that, he said to me last week, he goes, the way people are today, that, and it's been said through other people too, that people aren't smart enough for democracy. The best form of government is basically a dictator based on benevolent dictatorship. But what they're going for is totalitarian dictatorships in all countries of the world. So that's a bad thing. But but I don't think he doesn't have trust and faith in people. I don't know if you look throughout history, they've really handled themselves well. I know the biblical stories tell us that people have always wanted a king, someone to take care of them. But we've been controlled for thousands of years by the evil people that control us today. So it's really hard to determine whether people could handle self-government themselves or not. And from what I've seen in this movement, the bickering and the backbiting and everyone thinking they're right, a dictator does sound better to me. Now, I don't want to be a dictator. One of my best students, Marlene, can tell you that I'm not interested in, being a leader at all. I'm just here to make sure people get on the right path and do the right things. Because, I do get upset, and I think their motives are, I'm real judgmental according to a lot of people, but I think I'm being honest with people, and it's called tough love, because I know I can't be free unless other people are free, and if they're screwing up, it screws me up, so.
Right.
That's why
If I could say something here. Right.
Yeah, you want to take over the money issue?
No, well, I don't want to get into that right now, really. Let you guys go on maybe a little later here, touch on a few things. But I did want to interject something, too, and it really does go along with what you're saying, but as regards the way people are being selfish and everything, but there also is a reason, a cause and effect relationship here, too. In that I wish I had this at hand. I don't know where it is at the moment, and I can't remember the name, but there was a work put out some years back, not too terrible long ago, because the gentleman came out of hiding, and he wrote a very authoritative work called on ponderology. He was one of the last one or two or three scientists and psychoanalyst type scientists that lived under the Soviet Union and functioned at the very top levels for many years. And what it deals with is psychopathy and psychopaths, and the nature of his studies and the results. It became very obvious in the many years that he and his fellow workers were there in Russia before, back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and all but just himself and one or two others had been disappeared, you know. And he finally came out with this work, extensive work on his studies and research on psychopathy. And one of the things that's very obvious that he points out is that as a country that's controlled by psychopaths becomes, if you would, full-fledged, then the citizens of necessity, in order to survive in that because of the surroundings and all, in most cases will begin to gradually take upon themselves, even though they're not legitimate psychopaths, in order to survive within a psychopathic system, they will begin to exhibit and function and live in that very self-centered, psychopathic copy, if you would, type mentality and state in existence. And that is so very evident in our country today. And so, you know, there is somewhat of a reason for that, especially in modern times. So I just wanted to, you know, point that out and mention that it's not always just so obvious as to why people are the way that they are. And it's a progressive thing that gets worse and worse as the psychopathy becomes more obvious and more controlled and more extant. And we are very much controlled and live within an extremely psychopathic leadership at the top of our world today, not just this country either.
Yes, I was talking to a friend of mine this week also about she was wondering why her daughter's acting the way she is. And I asked her about, well, what was her father like? And she said, well, he was abusive, a liar. And I go, well, there you go. It's learned behavior. And I agree that a lot of people in America today, with Bernays' training for, you know, the human resource consumer condition and what they've done to people in America through schools, that Charlotte Esserby has been bringing out, yes, all this can happen. So, yeah, there's some conditions there. We were damaged to a lot of people.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, part of my awakening, which I was going into a bit yesterday, is I felt something in 1998. God finally whacked me and gave me all the truth I needed. And the people that don't believe in the Creator, they're going to be lost. The Bible for me has been a great manual, if you will. And you know, a lot of people have been turned away from it because of religious grounds, and it's really unfortunate how much people have been damaged by the New World Order. So I advise people seek, you know, some kind of salvation through spirituality any way they can, and quit listening to their churches and, you know, the different religions. Just like I said, I think the Bible is a good place to start. And get rid of the religious connotations to it. Make sure you, you know, interpret what's really being said.
Right.
And I'm not here to push, you know, the Bible or religion on anyone. I'm speaking from my experience, so, and it's worked very well for me. It's opened my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. It's been my experience that for a person that is sane to survive in an insane environment, the sane person has to take on the characteristics and traits and do the same insane things as those in the environment. And pretty much one of those laws of the jungle type of things.
You bet. That's exactly what I was, you know, referencing with this gentleman with the ponerology. So it's there's a lot more to it than just meets the eye, the casual eye, or even the awareness of most people. It's just, in so many cases, it's a matter of necessity just to function. And many times, the very individuals that are exhibiting these traits and functioning in these mannerisms. They have no idea. You know, they can have the best of intentions, but, you can't fix something in yourself if you can't see it. And because of the massive amount of indoctrination, falsehoods, and dialectics and all these things that have been propagated extensively from the time we're born, more and more and more as this age has progressed to the point where we are now today, so many of us, unless one gets to the point in their personal lives where they can really go inside and begin to look at their very existence, they're just not aware.
Yeah, that ties into how the powers that be, whoever they are, whatever they are, they are primarily the guilty ones of not recognizing their fellow man's God-given rights.
Mm-hmm.
And they have manipulated the rest of us into thinking like them and acting like them and not recognizing each other's God-given rights. We're all here on the same planet under the same conditions, under the same rules of survival, which kind of leads into one of the statements that I made to you last night, Lawrence. If I can remember it correctly, and you may have to correct me on this. Let's see if I can remember it. It was how we are all spirits having a human experience. We're not humans having a spiritual experience, I believe is what I said.
Yes, that's it. That's true. That's so true, I tell you. Your book has fascinated me, and I've worked with you, and we've talked so many times. What, almost a year and a half now? I think it is somewhere in there, year and a half.
Yes, something like that. Yep.
Mhm. And it's been fascinating, and I've learned a lot, and it's been a wonderful experience. And like I said earlier last night at one point, I had researched and studied, like many of us and many of the listeners today, I surely don't even begin to say or think that I know it all. I'm just a beginner. But I did spend many years, like yourself, looking into this before I let that area of research go to jump into an area that I felt was more needful for myself and to bring to the awareness of people, that being the money issue. But what I did study was very intensive and all the way back, for even long prior to founding of our country. And your work did clarify so many points for me that just could never put a handle on, So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I guess that's a thank you, and you're welcome. I myself also don't know everything, but I'll say that if someone's trying to BS me or I know they're totally off base, I'm not going to put up with it. Most of these people in this movement, which happened again last night, have conjured up ideas in their head that they're right about things, and they're not, and they fight it like it's a religion to them. They'll fight tooth and nail to say that they're right. And on that point, I want to reiterate where I'm coming from with all this. If I didn't say it last night, but not that I agree with their system, but I respect it. It's like a gun. If you don't respect it, it's going to hurt you. And we're working with a system that they have had in place for thousands of years. It's the same blueprint. And it does have remedy. And I'm not out here to reinvent the wheel. I'm here to use what they've given us until we can get to a point to get everyone educated to change it. And I don't know what everyone envisions. There's a lot of people out there that think that you don't need any government. Well, for example, the Indian tribes didn't have governments per se. They did have their own rules, though. It wasn't the civil law system. And, of course, there's going to be people that argue what system's better. And I don't know, in the modern world, like even my parents say, well, things have changed over the past 100 years even. You need government to handle these things, which to a point you do, but to a point you don't. I mean, using my stepfather as an example, he was with a plumbing manufacturing company, and they didn't have an overseeing committee by the federal government to make sure plumbing standards were, met by all the different manufacturers around the world, or at least the United States. They met from time to time on their own without being told what to do to make sure all their products work together. So, I have mixed feelings about how much government's needed. Of course, we can all agree today that the government's it's basically a mechanism to let corporations flourish, and that's got to be done away with. And, of course, the 14th Amendment gave them a lot of that power. And keeping the people ignorant and away from the law let them do it even to the nth degree, even more. So I think I mentioned last night that even the system as it exists, if everyone knew how it worked and they weren't oppressive, I think it would work. But you can't have a lot of people out there being ignorant because they're going to get jerked around. And we're to the point now that everyone's so they're getting away with things. I mean, even some of my associates have said 20 years ago they saw a lot of things work in the courts, but with their agents, such as the Southern Poverty Law Center out there, going around giving seminars to judges and police officers, telling them to ignore any patriot-type positions, which, some are off and wacky, but there are some points that are right. But just to tell these people to ignore everything about it is criminal. And with these guys getting conditioned the last 10 years, it's gotten really bad. So what my point is we got a bigger hole to dig out of here. And every minute that goes by, it's getting worse. And that's because of people's ignorance. And that's why I don't put up or tolerate these whimsical fantasies that most of these patriots live in. If you can't show me where you're coming from with their system of law, I'm not going to listen to them.
Well, yeah.
Along with that, I was talking to David Miola after the show last night, and he tells me where these people are coming from. They think they're sovereigns. I think the people that getting back to self-centeredness and whatnot in regard to divide and conquer, they're a bunch of useful idiots. The way I explained it to David last night is they have, there's been natural nations or tribes, if you will, or peoples throughout history. What they've done is nationalized us into a commercial-based nations. We got a baby step. PAC has always been about baby stepping back out of this stuff. So what these people are doing, are calling themselves sovereigns, and I'm pretty much convinced that it's a plot of the other side to get us to be divided. And it's just based on I'm sovereign, I'm a god, I'm my own self, I don't care about anyone, not even my neighbor, attitudes that is dividing us and not allowing us to take their commercial nation principles, take them over so we can baby step back out of this mess. It's just ridiculous, and there's a lot of people teaching this garbage out there right now, and it's got to be stopped. We got to unify. with what we got to work with right now, or they're going to win out. It's their
I have
system.
to totally agree with you.
What?
I said I have to totally agree with you on that point,
Yep.
LB.
Oh, thank you.
Without unity, and I don't mean that we, all have to like come together as a group and become an organization and this, that, and the other. No, we just need to respect each other's points of view, because, in my opinion, and I could be completely wrong on this, I have that luxury. It's my luxury of being wrong.
I'm never wrong. Ask my mom. I'm just kidding. She says that sarcastically. She'll say that to me because I'll beat her in an argument, So.
LB,
anyway, go
LB,
ahead.
LB,
Yeah.
you're just like me. My grandmother used to tell me I was perfect, the perfect example of imperfect.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, I admit when I'm wrong. I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I have been wrong before. But
right.
Yeah, that's.
I just you got to try to do the best you can with what you have to work with, and being delusional doesn't help you win the battle.
Right. That's right. That is right. I believe we all get. We're all like cogs on a wheel. We all have our own specific jobs, our own little piece of the information, and we may all specialize in a certain part of it. I do see the 14th Amendment for what it is, as you wrote it out. I seen it before I started studying your writings at PAC and all that. So, to me, you're spot on. Yeah, you're definitely spot on.
Well, I don't want to say I invented the 14th Amendment as evil thing. I mean, people were talking about it 20 years ago when I got into this, but, there wasn't any book or group that really could explain everything,
Mm-hmm.
So I took what they kind of had patched together, I guess you would say, and made it better, if you will. And, some of their bad arguments are still going around, like, the 14th Amendment is for black people. No, it's not. That's ridiculous. I go, okay, if it's for black people, when's their election held where they go vote? And when's the election had, where the white people go vote?
Right.
That's ridiculous to even think that.
Right, and it doesn't even specifically say who it applies to. It doesn't say anything
it's just
as to who.
All persons.
Right, it's very general.
That's the crux of the private law system it installs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just a whole different. It corrected a lot of things that were absent from their wants from the first day they put the Constitution in place.
Right.
It was a stair-step thing.
Hey, LB, there's a question from the chat room. The question comes from Chris, and the question goes, does LB know of any incidents where the use of a non-statutory abatement was implemented successfully? Apparently, it only works for those with corrected status, and it also relies on the spiritual aspect of the courts.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Again, like I just stated a few minutes ago, one of my associates that I've worked with for a while now, we're seeing a lot more wins back in the 90s, and like I said, things are getting bad, and it really, that's another reason I get upset with all these patriot-tards out there that make up stuff and try to walk in the fence or work in the gray area, because they're doing so many things that just make it harder for the people that are doing things right, because the government employees, not only get told that what we're doing is all wrong and unlawful, whatever, or illegal, whatever you want to say, but they get fed up with it because they're so nonsensical. PAC is, when I correct people's status, they're aware that we're going to peace with these people. Most of these patriots, and that's why there's such I don't know, well, what's the word I want to use? Tarnished record with the people that want to think out of the box. Is they're all belligerent. Just very, very I want to kill you kind of attitude, or you're evil, instead of being nice to them, like our process recommends or is about. Not just recommends, we demand it. The people, it's in the contract when you work with PAC that you're supposed to treat all the government people with respect. So, these people are damaging the whole 9 yards. They're just bad apples.
LB?
Yes, sir.
On that one point, kind of kicking back to the morals and ethics of old, I believe, as you do, I'm sure, and most of our listeners, that we should all treat each other with the utmost respect at all times. Because, we do come from the same place, essentially.
Sure.
I don't understand, other than that it's been set up this way, where the children have been manipulated into being, without moral, without conscience, without respect for each other, and they're being pushed, I'd say, for lack of a better word, I believe they're being pushed into having a large lack of respect for their parents, and even worse, for themselves.
Well, that's definitely true. I was just explaining to someone I was chatting with him on Facebook, one of my new friends, about what I envision needs to happen. And I was talking about Ron Paul and, the Campaign for Liberty. Well, that's a Jesuit operation. And Ron Paul, people say he talked about the 14th Amendment. He doesn't. And he does all these good things, but yet he's saying with his Campaign for Liberty, we're going to restore the Constitution. Well, how do they plan to restore it? How has it gone bad? If you're not talking about the 14th Amendment, which totally changed everything, you're not being honest with people. So I smell a rat. That's kind of.
I agree with that.
So,
yes,
another friend of mine that I've recently friended in the last couple of months, she's done a lot of research, and she goes, no, Ron Paul's talked about it. She spent a week looking. There's nothing where he's talked about it. He ignores it like Alex Jones does. All these people avoid it like the plague.
Yeah.
So, there's only one guy that's on the same page as me, and it's Eric Phelps of Vatican Assassins. He knows that's their Achilles heel, and that's why no one talks about it, and that's why this whole movement centers on things like Lincoln being the problem. How many books have come out in the last year or two on Lincoln, or the last 10 years? It's a distraction. That they want you to look at Lincoln being the reason for the Civil War, and a bad guy, good guy, it doesn't matter. And ignore the presence of the Reconstruction Amendments. So it's all orchestrated. Everything in this movement is planned opposition.
Yeah, we've been told that by, I believe it was one of the presidents, said nothing nothing happens by accident.
Yeah,
it's all by design.
Yeah, it was. I think Roosevelt said that, but I think the most telling speech is the one that Kennedy gave to the press in I think it was 61. Of course, they shot him a couple years later, but he was talking about Marx and the infiltration during the Civil War period in that press conference, and it was very telling. I didn't hear that speech until, a couple 3 years ago, so it had nothing to do with my understanding of what happened. Tell you the truth, all my research basically had come from interpretation of the 14th Amendment by reading it and studying Beauvais' Law Dictionary, the Law of Nations, and Roman Civil Law, and the current law dictionaries, which are Black's. I did not listen to, except for the Federalist Papers, I really didn't go into historical documentations.
Right.
At all. None of my research is grounded in that stuff at all. Joseph Rory, who I've met in the last 10 years, has been doing this a long time, and I've learned some things from him, but my scope of understanding goes way beyond his, which is American history and constitutional law, which I've studied international and Roman civil law a bit. I'm not totally versed because there's so many facets of law that it's impossible to know them all. And like I said last night, I was hoping to get crack research groups in all the states 10 years ago. Of course, people have the adversary, I should say, and people being narcissistic as they are, have destroyed that dream, if you will.
Right. Yeah. No. It's that odd mentality that they have. It's a ruler thing, and it's just so strange how they would believe that one man has any rights to own another, and I don't know where they get it from. I do see that their system has been around for eons, thousands and thousands of years. I see it as being a very corrupt system. I don't put any merit into it. But, as are the rules, when you do finally see the system, you want to learn the rules of the system because you want to win. You want to get, in there and know how to survive and make it to the top. At least many people that I know think that way. And when you start to study their system and decipher all of it, it'll definitely put a twist on how you perceive life. I personally did not enjoy, let's say, having to study their system for my survival. I don't know. I was told maybe I should have been a lawyer when I was younger, but now that I've actually studied their system, there's no way I would ever become a lawyer. A student in the law, yes, but I would not ever stand just at law. I like getting my feet wet, if that makes any sense.
Well, they've monopolized that, and it's been, 100 plus years. They brought the Bar Association in, and it's just another compartmentalization of our system. Just like, the NRA, for example, they're there to make sure people's 14th Amendment gun rights are, kept intact, which are privileges, it's not the right to bear any arm you want. It's what the government says you can have. And, people that are talking about nullification, I know that's a big problem right now. because the Vatican's agents, Napolitano and Tom Woods, are out there pushing that program, which is really a non-entity in strict sense, because of the money system basically destroys any validity that nullification had prior to the 14th Amendment. So they're leading their Pied Pipers, destroying people, just as people like I don't know, Tim Turner, for example, led all the lambs to slaughter with bad information.
Right. Now, going back a little bit on your, what it is you were expecting of people that joined the PAC Alliance, what would you say are the standards of both the PAC Alliance and, say, the State Nationals group there?
Now, like I've always believed, and I've just kind of let go the last couple of years because I've noticed people, for whatever reason, I think they like their socialism. And H.L., I think it was Mencken, said that most people don't like freedom. And I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said they're afraid of freedom. And I also, another guy that said that was, he just passed away. I think I mentioned him last night. Lee Brobst. He was 80 years old or so and doing this quite a while, studying law. He said, if you would have told him when he started that people didn't want to be free, he wouldn't have believed it, but it took him 30 years to figure it out. It took me a couple years to figure it out, less than 10. So I think people like to piss and moan, but they don't want to be free. But they're chicken, or they like to be taken care of. So they're never going to be free. They're going to be slaves. So I guess I finally said, well, if we're going to save ourselves, again, if others aren't free, I can't be free. I figure all the people that are in the system are the enemy. Technically, they are. They're rebelling against lawful government into this, communitarian system under the 14th Amendment. They're the enemy of their creator. They're the enemy of their countries that they were born into, of course, that the Illuminati set up. But they're part of this satanic plan to, combine everything in the world under one government. So they're all part and parcel to that. So they are technically, literally the enemy. But if they wanted to push it, we could be, accused of, trading with the enemy. Some people know that terminology, working with U.S. citizens. But because this is such a deceptive and unbelievable fraud, that they wouldn't even want that exposed, so we get away with it, if you know what I'm saying. So a couple of years ago, I decided to get the PAC Alliance put together for the people that are maybe wanting to help us get the word out. But, I'm finding a lot of people aren't willing to, get the Red Amendment and read it. And if you can't do that, you don't know what our platform is, for lack of better words. You're worthless. You're going to be all over the board. And this whole movement, none of them have a plan. It's just, I've heard this. I was arguing with someone yesterday about the United States being a republic, and I go, that's Illuminati brainwashing. And I'm testing people on this. And I go, show me in the Constitution where it says the United States is a republic. And they can't point it out. They go, well, here it is. The United States shall guarantee each state a Republican form of government. I go, that's each state's a republic. It doesn't say the United States is. Mm-hmm. And they can't answer it. There is nothing.
Right.
So these are some of the things that have been ingrained into people's minds that they can't explain. It's a patriot mythology. And, it goes on and on. Of course, there's been different philosophies about republics. I mean, China's a republic, and I think that's, they do that to confuse the world issues, to make us think we're the best thing since sliced bread over here, and republics are bad, when actually Republican form of government's what you want, but they want us under the civil law system, so they created that boogeyman terminology, so we think it's bad. With China, for example, that's how the New World Order works, with deceptions and word games. But if you look into the Law of Nations, which is another, I haven't done the deep research on it, but surface prima facie evidence that it is New World Order, blueprinting. They hired Vattel to put this information together, the Jesuit order, and that's, some of their, blueprints or philosophies they've taken, but it's based on natural law and, international law, which came from the Roman Empire. Like I said, they're using rules that are thousands of years old. But if you look in there, Patel talks about a federal or a federation republic. So if you want to attach their rules, there it is. But technically, in the Constitution, it's not mentioned. So, these are the things that people don't know, and they can't explain. And that's where the mythology gets very dangerous. And now they'll hammer you in court. They'll eat you alive. And I've seen it time and time again. They're always, the prosecutors are always testing people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they do.
LB, we've talked before and discussed a few things, and one thing I think we discussed one time is, and this isn't to justify at all, so please no one take it that way, what I'm going to say, but, there is honor amongst these people. The thing is, they have had their system of law for so many hundreds, if not thousands of years in place, and it's being perfected on a worldwide basis today is the only difference, really. But when one gets theirself in the same league of status and playing field as they are, because of the matter of free choice, they do respect you. Maybe not the lower minions, but at the higher level.
I've seen it. I've seen it happen time and time again.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do. There is, as the old saying, honor among thieves.
Right.
And but the fact of the matter is, because of the people have allowed this to happen through acquiescence, apathy, greed is a big part of it, personal greed, wanting the freebies and the handouts and someone to take care of us, all the way back to the choice of wanting a king when Scripture says that God didn't want a king. But if they wanted it, that's fine, and here's what would happen, which is what's happened. And, the wars and taking your sons and daughters and just destroying everything that's good, well, that's been pretty obvious that that's happened, and it's more so than ever today, if you would. But still, there's a huge difference in legal and lawful. But everything they do really is legal within their system, and it is their system. And as long as we fight and try to play within their system, we have no ability in law to do anything other than just move chess pieces aimlessly around the board with no end in sight. We need to quit fighting them and recognize that everything is our choice. And when we get to that 100th monkey syndrome in the right direction, with people realizing, realizing that we have the power to mold and fashion our own lives and take it to wherever we want to go. When we take that personal responsibility and that make that choice with intent upon ourselves, then this world will change. and it will be respected, because I think if it could be known, I think they won't balance as much as we do in this world. That's the whole problem, is it's so out of balance because the people have neglected our part in this game, if you would. And they're here, the things that, like we talked about last night, Jose, you know, the situations and conditions that exist in our world today exist for a reason, and for reasons. There's no accidents. The people have, in neglecting their parts, have mandated because you know, things just don't like a void. You know, it has to be filled with something, and they're here for a purpose, to jumpstart our butts back into recognizing who and what we are, and to do our part to bring balance back to this earth. Or they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't exist. These situations wouldn't exist. So people need to get wise. Unfortunately, it's probably going to take a major blow to most people in the world, especially here in the state, to humble us enough to seek our spiritual selves, or God. And this is all part of a reason and purpose, and that's what this whole time is about right now.
Right. Yeah. Fortunately, I don't know. I try to stay out of the religious side of it because I haven't quite learned how to prove my point on that side yet, or maybe I'm just not confident enough to prove my point. But on just about any other side of whatever we were going to talk about, I would stress that a person grab a dictionary, because that's about the only way that we are going to be able to communicate, considering the current circumstances of education and how it's been just turned on its head upside down, makes us all neglect our own educations. They have done, the powers that be, have done everything they can to actually make us dumber, and we just went right along with it. I mean, I got to admit, you know, at least until the very early 90s, I really didn't care about education. I didn't care much about hardly anything other than having a job, a girlfriend, a car, and you know what all that leads to. So I was at the point, you know, where I had fallen on some hard times and the system was messing with me. I said, well, okay, I'm going to mess back. And I realized very, very quickly that my education, what I had done in school, and how little attention I had put, not paid, not given, but put upon my own learning, was very, very lacking. And once again, we go back to definitions. I realized that a lot of people were running around yelling this word democracy, democracy. And when I questioned them, they were talking about the republic, or a republic form of government. And I said, wait a second, to them, you know, I tell them, look, you're not talking about a democracy, you're talking about republic. And there's a big difference between the two, and they would disagree with me because they didn't know the forms of government. They obviously do not know the definition of either word. And they're screaming, you know, at the top of their lungs, they're screaming for the freedom that comes with the republic. And to show just a small example of how confused they are, they're sitting there also screaming in the same time, in the same breath, practically, for the security that they would sort of receive, I guess, if you want to call it security, from the democracy side, if you want to call it a democracy. I choose not to, but that's what I'll use for now.
Well, that's what most of these people are doing. They're just going around, they're repeating what they've heard. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Like
repeaters.
I said with Ron Paul, we're going to restore the Constitution. Well, my question here was, where the hell did it go?
Right.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's online.
That would be my first
They got
question.
it on their websites. So, yeah, it did go somewhere. It was called Reconstruction. Let's start talking about that. Oh, no, we can't. So, again, these guys are all, excuse my expression, full of shit. They can't be trusted. Something stinks here in the state of the United States. So, it's elementary.
I keep on, every time now, since David pointed it out to me about 3 months ago, and I appreciate it, Dave, the definition of state, country, and nation is pretty much synonymous. I looked in one dictionary and it referred to me to nation. I looked in a different dictionary and that one said nation and it referred to me to country, and it just kind of goes around it. So it's
vague. It's vague. Like I think I mentioned last night, until I got to Soames' Institutes of Roman Law. Is it Institutes or Institutions of Roman Law? Should pull the thing out and look at it. But until I got that book, like 12 years ago, I had no idea what they were talking about in Black's Law Dictionary. The more you read things, the more things become clear. But, like I'll go back and read a case that I read 12 years ago, and I have no idea what they're talking about. But things pop out like, with big red flags, because you just learn more and things become more clear. But if you go into a Black's Law Dictionary, I know it now, it's just more vague than it should be. And the point is they don't spell things out in black and white. And like I got mad last night at that guy about, this whole movement's plagued with, people are corporations. No, they're not. They're not corporations. Corporations are created by the state. They're not a natural entity like men and women are. There's natural persons, which are people in the law of persons, and then there's artificial persons, which are corporations. So people are not corporations. And this whole movement's plagued with disinformation, and they hold on to it like it's a religion, like it's their Jesus Christ. And they won't let go of it, and they won't listen. It's just ridiculous. And until people, I've been saying for a while now, America will not get fixed until Americans fix themselves. And part of that is admitting you're wrong and listen to someone that can point out exactly where you're wrong, but they won't do it.
That is probably one of the things that's most lacking in this world. We've been manipulated, brainwashed, and taught to believe that we are nothing more than objects, that our fellow man is nothing more than an object to be used. Love your fellow man, not objects. Use objects. Use the material things in the world. Don't use your fellow man. I don't know how much deeper it can get than that, but I'm sure somebody will improve on it. LB?
Yes.
Okay, so I was thinking, since we're at the top of the second hour, I was thinking I would invite you back to any of our Thursday shows with me and David Miola, or I should say David Miola and I, as a special guest anytime you are available. You too, Lawrence.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I told David in the chat last night, I think he's listening tonight, that I'm kind of been underground for a couple of years because of all this Tim Turner stuff. I mean, and it just went insane now that he got put away, which I knew was coming, because everything he did was stolen from the movement. He had no idea what he was doing, no idea what he was talking about. I still think he's one of their agents, which they have no problems putting their own people away to put on a good show. Matter of fact, I think Timothy McVeigh's on an island somewhere enjoying a margarita, if you can believe that one. But
probably so.
Now that the dust has settled, people are starting to wake up. I mean, I've just seen so many good things happening spiritually with people the last couple of weeks since the election, and people are waking up at a fast rate. The PAC Alliance has got to get out there and get things done, and or they're going to get away with this campaign for liberty, which is just setting up order out of chaos situation. What they're going to do this time, they're pretty much doing what they did with the Civil War, but because of communications and things, now they're doing things a little differently. But they've worked things up into a frenzy with Ron Paul, and Alex Jones and people like this, and now they're coming together. They're going to try to get people to rebel, and I've seen this going on in that last week or so, prior to Thanksgiving. So we have a little time, I think, before they can get that done. But we have to. People have been listening to me already that these guys are bad, and there's other people out there too that realize this too, and there a few videos put out on from some good people. I just posted one from a young man from Canada who did a pretty good job on my Facebook page that explains how this all works. So I think I mentioned last night, we have to round up all the people that have done research and get rid of these repeaters and users of other people's material. I was the one that brought the I think it was Capus Dementa. I forget the pronunciation. It's a Latin term that basically strips your status of full property rights in the Roman law. And I brought it out in the latest edition, which is a 2000 edition of the Red Amendment. And it's all over the internet, but there's no connection to where it came from. It's even in Wikipedia now, and it's like, okay, where'd this come from? What's it attached to? There's no explanation to it. And it's kind of like finding a part to a motor off a car on the road. Where did this come from? What motor does this go to? So that's what this movement does. They take things from places, and you don't know where it comes from. So that's that narcissistic attitude of this movement. They aren't willing to work together. They want to be the God that brings everyone. I'm the God that saved you. Look at what I've just showed you. That's their attitude, and it's just thievery is what it is. And anyway, back to what I was getting at. We got to get down every facet of research. I'm not talking about law. I'm talking about the chemtrails, everything for the PAC Alliance. Get to the researchers that are the number one people and get them all lined up and work. We got to start working together. And that's what the third prong of the PAC Alliance is about, which is there's three prongs to the PAC Alliance. One, getting local communities talking to one another. There's a lot of people working on those things, and they have to be unified and start working together to get the best things down pat. Of course, there's a lot of people that can bring things to the table in that respect. But then two is get people's nationalities corrected. And, of course, the people that do that are going to know law better than anyone. And then the third facet of the PAC Alliance, these are just 3 bullet points, simple bullet points of what I came up with a couple of years ago that I thought needed to be done. And I was hoping to get people together to start working on these things, but it hasn't transpired yet. But I think it will soon. But the third one is getting, like I said, all the best people together, and it's called watching what they do. We got to keep an eye on them, which I've been doing. Like with the Ron Paul Liberty Campaign for Liberty movement and things like that. You got to watch what they're doing because they are destroying us, and expose them as need be. And of course, there's good things that can be. The good things would come into the community thing. So those are the things that all have to be worked out, and we got to start orchestrating. And there's more of us than there is of them. And plus, we're not. I don't worry about them. People say, "Oh, aren't you afraid of your computer getting hacked?" I don't care what they see. I'm not hiding anything. They're hiding stuff. They have to, because they're so evil, they have to operate in secret. And, because there's not a lot of them, that's how they get things done, in secret.
Right. Now, last night, Lawrence and I and Deatra spoke a little bit about the Regal. Did I say that right?
Regal, yes.
Regal. Do you know anything about it, LB?
Well, a little bit. I have not, just common sense tells you, and after a little research I've done, and I think Lawrence will echo what I'm going to say, you can't eat gold. And from the things I've picked up here and there, my friend Gregory Williams, who I don't know, I broke ties with about a year ago now. But he said, well, the Spartans were fascist. They had a gold standard, and this, was thousands of years ago. And they let their people, the people that weren't the rulers or the upper echelon of the community or whatever, their society, they could not own gold. It was a privilege for them to own it. And that's what they've done to us. So if you go back in history also, this has been a standard. And learning this and that, the Rothschilds are the one that want the gold standard. They put that in place here so they could destroy the states and take it all from them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'll let Lawrence go from there because he knows more about this than I do. He studied it.
Yeah, follow the money trail.
Yeah, I don't think I'd appreciate, or my teeth would appreciate me attempting to eat gold either, or any other type of metal for that matter.
Well, it's got some qualities for manufacturing in electronics, as does silver. But I tell people, let's start over. Let's pretend you got people on Earth and they all occupy, certain lands. What if your territory did not have any gold? If you set a gold standard up, what's going to happen to those people that have gold? Let's say they have a ton of gold on their little territory that they own. They're going to get attacked by everyone.
Right.
Well,
I'll
interject something here. I'll interject something on that very point, LB. There's a site by Walter Burian called, you can look it up online, CAFR1, CAFR1.com. I think it is. I think it's .com.
Yeah, I know Walter. I've known him for years.
Right, and that's another whole big issue there. But he has a very good article, and it doesn't cover all the issues with gold, but he has one article on there. If you scroll down half, two-thirds of the page down his homepage there, you'll see an article about eating gold, And it's a very good article, and it's very factual. And what it does, we're heading into a time if the powers that be have their way, we're most likely going to be heading into a new form of currency that is so-called backed by gold as a world currency. This is their plans, and from what all my studies have been leading to for a long time. I've been telling this people for years for years and years now, and it's becoming very obvious, and more people are talking about it all over the world, in the big organizations even. So this article explains that the big boys have been buying up the gold since the 60s at the beginning of this particular monetary system when it finally was really fully put into place. And because this monetary system has a mathematical lifetime, which is pointed out since back in the 70s and very explicitly back in the 80s by a gentleman, which I can't I think it was Michael Montaigne, and I don't agree with everything he has, but I respect him very much. And that it's about at the end of its close. You know, it's beyond, it's to the point and past the point actually of being profitable for them. They've got just about have their eggs in a basket now, and they're ready to pull the next trigger. But this article on the gold explains that they probably own, as far as control, 60, 70, 80% of the gold, known gold in the world, as far as reserves and still in the ground and all this stuff. And if they have their way, they've been buying this up on the cheap for ages and a day. And knowing that this time would come, it's their system, their monetary system. They're not dumb. This isn't an accident. Nothing that's happening is an accident. And it's planned to crash. And it's planned to make all the big boys and the bad boys and the public figures look like bad boys, and the whole world's fixing to be corrected and fixed, and it's all we're gonna win, you know. And it's just another point of Hegelian dialectic, one of their biggest, the biggest ones that they have ever done against the people. But this gold article plainly explains that they've done this, and when this system goes into place, just like you said, what are you going to do? The countries that don't have gold and all this, every country in the world is going to be clamoring for gold to be able to implement their needful currency to do business. And the big boys, this is going to drive gold up to prices that are totally unimaginable right now. And then at some point, they will artificially crash it. And this will all probably take place in the next 3.5 to 5 years, as I expect it to be at least. And because what's fixing to happen is going to change. It's going to happen very quickly in the financial world, the monetary world, economics and all. And it's been planned for a long, long time now. People just don't understand this. But anyway, they're gonna finally be able to get rid of their gold, because you see right now they can't get rid of this massive amounts of gold and profit from when they bought it down on peanuts on the dollar, you know, right above our original price standard. You know, from $38 on up, they've been buying control, physical and in-ground control. And they can't turn it right now, because to do so would just totally flood the market and crash the prices back down, and they don't want to lose that potential profit. They want to take it higher so that they can gain more real assets in the rest of the world that they don't own it already. So this is, you know, something for people to think about. Ron Paul, as you mentioned earlier, to go back to him, is, you know, I like him on a lot of fronts, but he doesn't touch the real issues, and he is a gold bug, and he's clamoring to go back to gold, and this is the last thing in the world that we need right now.
Right.
Which, you know, it just lends to more, you know, red flags going up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's also the point that Germany, and we know who runs Germany, has been clamoring at the Federal Reserve for their gold to be returned to Germany. I don't know that they've stated how much of the gold the Federal Reserve holds is actually Germany's, but it may be quite a bit. Personally, I don't believe there's very much gold within the 50, you know. I believe it's all been shipped to England or thereabouts.
Well, yeah. But see, that's why they built that into the original Constitution. I think the Rothschilds, the world bankers, put that clause in the Constitution that the states had to pay their debts in gold and silver, just so they could enslave them with that principle and turn them into the fiat, easily convert them into a fiat system. But it's like I told someone a couple weeks ago, Rothschilds, and they're doing it right now. If you go on the cable channels, I think Discovery has a bunch of gold seekers right now. They're spending thousands of dollars a day digging out an ounce of gold out of the ground. It's just ridiculous. They have more. Well, the point I'm trying to make is that these Rothschilds are the world bankers that want all this gold, which is just another mineral with a value put on it that comes out of the ground. Let's say we wanted to worship oak trees and put a value on them, and that's the same thing. But because gold's always been a cherished item throughout history, the people put the value on it. They do, but so what my point is that they're getting all these guys to dig the gold out of the ground for them, and they regulate the value of it, and they don't have to do any dirty work, and they're going to steal it from them again. And 14th Amendment. Citizens don't have any rights. They can come in and take it any time they want because they're, in violation, like I said earlier, of their law form. They're criminals against God and what they have the right to own, and they don't even know it. This whole system's an illusion. It's very sad that people won't listen. Anyway, that's all I wanted to interject.
Oh, I agree with you, LB. I totally agree with you. They've played their game very well. I respect them for at least that much. I don't like their game. They have accomplished the one thing I never had considered until just recently, and that is they actually manipulated us into conquering ourselves so that they could just swoop in and take the leadership role, if you will. I think that was a very nasty little trick to play. That comes in with the kings and queens and guillotines game that they love to play. It was just, and I see it in what I guess would be natural law, not common law, but natural law. That's criminal. That is very criminal to manipulate both sides of the same coin and then come in and steal whatever would be left. I don't like it at all.
Well, we're so caught up in what we think is money and our money, Jose. And that's all a repetition of lies forever and a day that's been given to us as fact, and it's nothing but a lie and a fraud, and that's been manipulated to make us think something that is not so. And we just, this whole thing is, like we were talking last night, and LBU and I have talked about it many times also, is that, we have just been so used to, we've been told for so many hundreds and thousands of years that government has is the only one that can has the right and ability to control money. And yet, how in the world can government control something that interferes in our most basic right of contract between each other to make our livelihoods, to be able to do and function as we see fit and is necessary? And anytime anyone stands in your way to issue the needful money according to your ability to reciprocate in exchange in the free market, then they control you. You are a slave to some degree, and you can argue that till the cows come home, and it's not going to change the reality. And that's the whole purpose of what I'm trying to bring forward with people, is to get people to understand that money power, that the power to issue or create and control money has to belong to you. You only can create money when you make a purchase. When you buy it, it is your credit that's given you by the seller that allows you to create money. And then that money is redeemed when you take that, you've received your product, and you take your goods and services into the market. When you sell that much value back into the market, that money ceases to exist. There is no increase. It's exchange for exchange. It's just what?
Right. It is all about exchange.
There's no profit in that instance. If you're an employee, you're working for someone. That employer is buying your service, your ability to provide a service that is necessary in that particular line of work. And he takes and sells it. He puts it out there for sale, and basically you're buying his product. And when all is said and done, all money is just information. It's evidence, if you would, of an exchange process that is incomplete. And once it becomes complete, the buyer created the money, selling that back into the market, that money ceases to exist. It's always available because everybody has credit according to their ability to produce. And the great majority of people have this, and the rest don't. It's a matter where we have an obligation and duty to our fellow man, our brothers and sisters around the world, to take care of those that can't take care of themselves. That's where brotherly love comes in. That's been taken from us, and today it's stolen from us, and we have no say. We don't have any ability. So many of us, probably a great majority in the country today, in the way things are, to really take care of our family, even, let alone in our friends and neighbors. And that's always been an historic tradition, throughout history. And yet that's taken from us and controlled and plundered. And so no wonder that people are so insensitive to the plight of other people in this world today,
Right.
And we need to change all of those things. We've got to get back to community and to local exchange to a great degree.
Right. I agree. Yeah, it is time for us to rebuild our local communities in the direction of where we can actually support one another through the fruits of our labors, because the fruits of our labors and our labors are actually the only thing that we own. We don't own the currency that the federal government or the federal bank or any of those put out. That's theirs. That's their money. That's their paper. Just like the bonds, birth certificates, the Social Security thing, which, if you look at it correctly, you're paying them to enslave you. That Social Security stuff doesn't really make sense. But like I said, that goes all the way back into the personal freedom, personal responsibility, not only for yourself and your actions, but and I still can't stress it enough, personal responsibility for our own educations. Because honestly, folks, I'm really getting sick and tired of hearing it come out of people's mouths. Oh, that does not apply to me. Or the other one, common law stuff, that's dead. That it doesn't apply anymore. You know what? Nobody ever said, at least I never got the memo, saying common law does no longer exist, and laws only apply to people if a person chooses to allow that specific law to apply to them. The way the system is set up, the way it has been manipulated, how we've all been trained, brainwashed, and programmed into it, there's certain rules you have to go by to survive. There's always rules. If you're going to be in the system, you better learn the rules. You better be able to play their game according to their rules and bow your knee to them. Bow on your knee to them, because you are going to be their servant. When you get out, if you choose to get out, then you can stand on your own 2 feet. You'll take full responsibility for yourself, full responsibility for all of your actions, and you'll see, you will become a much more caring person. You'll care about everybody. You'll want to help everybody. And the funny thing about that is that it comes back to you tenfold. You go out, you'll help 1 or 2 neighbors, and next thing you know, they're bringing you food, and they're bringing you vegetables, or inviting you over for this and that and the other, and that's the very basis of our existence is, we have to survive. And this planet, this place where we live, it's not nice to anyone. No one ever promised me, or anybody else that I know of, a rosy life filled with rose gardens and fun and all that. And if they did, the one making the promise was a fool, and the one that believed it was an even bigger fool. I'm sorry about the rant, guys. That's one. It's just one of my points. Yeah. Well, we're down to the bottom half of the hour, and a few minutes short of that. LB, I'd like to ask a few more things about the 14th Amendment, or actually the Red Amendment, the book. Specifically, if you don't mind, the difference between a person's birthright nationality and the nationality that they gain from their father. Could you expound on those two just a bit?
Well, the rules that they use, and there's been a lot of controversy with that in the president's position. Obama, there's a lot of people that say, they call them birthers, that argue that Obama is not a natural-born citizen according to the clause in the Constitution that mandates that the president be natural-born, which is even nimble. I was talking to a guy today about the Constitution and what's going to transpire, what I think they're going to do with this revolution that Ron Paul's pushing right now is they're going to start a bloody revolution, just like they did with the Civil War, but this time they're going to install not the 14th Amendment or the Reconstruction Amendments. They're going to totally revamp everything and put a new Constitution in place. Of course, they're not telling people that, but I think that's what the outcome will be. And if people don't get their acts together and start learning the law, they're going to get away with it again, and we won't have any say about it. So, having said that, where was I going to go with that? I was talking about a natural-born citizen. That's what where we're going. Okay, but in regard to citizenship, that was even nimble because I always had the question of let's say they had the territories and the governors of the territories of that time. Technically, they were territories or possessions of the United States. There are no longer any what they refer to as the capital T territories, which was a body of land owned by the United States. Everything is been granted statehood in the Union right now. But back then, when they did have those, my question was always, well, were these governors, what was their nationality technically at that time? Were they citizens of the United States, or were they still a national of, let's say, Maryland, if that's where they were born? So these are the things that really were never worked out or talked about in the past, and never really disclosed, because this whole system of law has been very, very vague. It's been secretive. They've never really let anyone totally know what was going on in the realm of, because they always wanted this one federal citizenship. I wrote a paper on that, looking at this term, citizen of the United States, and Joseph Rory, who did do some Constitutional Convention research on notes and things, they actually were really trying to get the 14th Amendment aspects put into the federal Constitution at the time, but a lot of people fought and got a lot of the terminologies changed, and one of them was citizen of the United States, which is very vague. Very deceptive. But getting back to birthright, using, let's say, John McCain, I don't know who's familiar with him. There's a lot of people said he was born on a military base outside the United States, and he wasn't a U.S. citizen, which, using the rules of citizenship, that's ridiculous, because his mom and dad were, U.S. citizens, or, at the time. So just because he was born outside the United States doesn't mean he was a U.S. citizen. So it depends. Even if today on the 14th Amendment citizen, let's say your mom and dad were visiting California and you're from New York. If you were born in California, that even under the de facto system, you're technically not a California citizen. You're a New Yorker. Under the 14th Amendment citizen. Again, when someone's born in this system, they're born into the de facto body's politic of the states. So they're automatically considered part of the de facto system, being born within the system, based on tons of operations of law that happen. Your dad votes, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a wall of things that make you a U.S. citizen in their 14th Amendment system. And people argue all these points, and they're just so lame. And again, they'll argue like it's a religion, and nothing's really, it is spelled out to a point. Once you start understanding the rules and how things operate, they're there. I can point to them. But these people, they get it in their head and they want to argue with you. And it's just really sad, that 14th Amendment still applies to only to black people. That's just so bad. Yeah, there's some Reconstruction acts, not the amendments, that go back to Title 42, which is civil rights under the U.S. Code, that provide for forced civil law on the states that go back to those acts that apply to black people, but in general, everything they do applies to everyone. And again, I think I tried to explain this last night. It depends, and I explained that in the Red Amendment, statute construction and content and context of which each act of Congress or a state legislature applies depends on if it's going to apply to you or not. And under the 14th Amendment system, it pretty much everything applies to you, and that's what status correction, dumping the civil status of the 14th Amendment does for people. It eliminates all these problems and gray areas that are there, which are called legal fictions. That's another term that the movement has destroyed or misapplied. They're saying, well, government's a fiction. No, it's not. It's there. It exists. It's not a creation of God or the Creator, but it's man's creation, and you have to deal with it. A legal fiction is a presumption made by a court based on the lack of evidence to the facts to prove it contrary. Let's say this is legal fiction. Guy goes into court, and the judge knows your dad. He knows your dad voted for him, and you're saying, "Well, I'm not a U.S. citizen." And the judge is sitting there. Well, I have nothing in front of me to say otherwise. I know your dad voted for me, and I know you have a birth certificate that was issued by the de facto state. So you're crazy. You're a U.S. citizen. He doesn't have to say that to you, but in his mind, these fictions exist. These things exist. So that's technically a legal fiction. And that's what they do to people all the time. It's called, what we used to call back in the 90s, they called it silent. They would take silent judicial notice. And it's kind of synonymous with legal fiction of certain aspects of law that they think exist, but because there's no evidence to prove they don't. That's a legal fiction.
Right.
Anyway, did I explain the citizenship concepts?
Yes.
Well enough?
Yeah.
Does anyone in the chat room have any questions on that?
Actually, there's a question about a study group in Connecticut. We'll have to direct them to the PAC forum for anybody that wants to join any type of study group. You can definitely find study groups in the PAC forum. Any other ideas on study groups, LB?
Well, I'd like to get them organized so they're done right, and people are not willing to do that. It seems like, and of course, I just heard from someone else that's reading the Red Amendment today that, he thought first they say they get mad because they can't believe what wool's been pulled over their eyes, and everyone I talk to just praises. I got a guy, his name's Michael Davis, that's been studying constitutional law for 20 years. He's written Second Amendment legal-based briefs, and he goes, the only two books you really need to read is Tupper Saucy's Rulers of Evil and the Red Amendment to get a good handle on what's going on and how to, know who you are and everything of that nature. Of course, there's supplementary things that complement all these studies, but I thought that was very, praiseworthy from him because I have talked to him. He's pretty sharp. He's done a lot of research.
Oh, okay. What would be the address to the forum that a person could go and find a study group at?
We don't have any. I hate to complain again, but Tim Turner just totally broke everything up. Or these other groups, or these plant operations. The last 5 years has been just devastating to the movement because of Turner. But that's what they meant to do. Just like they did with the Oklahoma City bombing and the militias. They dispersed the militias back in the 90s by doing that Oklahoma City thing. So yeah, the people have to learn what these people do and stop falling for it. It's unfortunate because the Turner thing was he was telling people they don't have to do anything and they don't have to pay their bills. What a great thing, Be irresponsible and, you don't have to do anything. And, of course, we see where that got everyone. So, but I was going to say earlier, that is the maxim of law they use against everyone. Let those who wish to be deceived. That's a maxim. So that's their ace in the hole. I mean, they use that against everyone.
Yeah,
and
correct.
Because it is a maxim of law, they feel they can deceive everyone.
Right.
Anyway,
for anyone that actually wants to learn more about the 14th Amendment, if it's new listening, if you don't quite have the gist of what we've been talking about so far, I'm going to strongly recommend that you go to pacalliance.us/home/ That's PACALLIANCE.US. And just start reading. Click on things. It's very interesting. There's a lot to learn. I recommend a very good Bouvier's dictionary or a Black's Law. The older the better. That way it's easier to understand exactly the concepts that are being spoken of. What the words mean, what they meant back then, like the 1856 Dictionary of Bouvier's, is very important. They changed a lot between then and now, to the point of where it just doesn't quite mean the same thing today. They're trying to water it down, for lack of a better way of saying it, and trying to pull the wool over our eyes, if I can use that term. Let's see here. And I would also recommend getting a hold of, a more modern college-level dictionary, possibly an intermediate dictionary for those things where you just can't quite get a hold of the right definition of what they're trying to say. And if you ever have any problems, I'm always open for questioning at freedomreigns.us. David Miola also, and I co-host David Miola's show on Thursday afternoons. I tell you what, LB, I'm going to give you like 5 minutes to just say whatever you want to throw in, any last words, because we're down to approximately the last 7 minutes of the hour. I'm thinking maybe we can get a song in at the end, or if you prefer to just fill our minds with information between now and the very end of the show, that would be nice too.
Okay, I guess the main thing I want to say is the Red Amendment is going up in cost the first of the year. It's going to go up to $45 from $35. It's been $35 for 12 years now. And there's going to be a new edition coming out this next month, so anyone that wants to order can still pay the $35, but they'll get the new edition. So, but if you prefer to get the old one, just let me know, and we'll send the old one to you. If you want it quicker, but you won't get delivery probably if you order and are expecting a new one until January, the 1st of January. Also with that, we're going to be starting classes the first of the year, and it's going to be based and grounded in the Red Amendment. You'll have to have that to even, join in the discussions and classes that I'll be holding It'll probably be bi-monthly. But there's going to be other activities and memberships that are available that people can join in. It's all going to be at cost. There's nothing. The only thing that's going to available from PAC that's at no cost is the PAC Alliance, which the Facebook group is the only outlet right now for the PAC Alliance. We'll probably be getting things organized within Facebook for now with that. So if you want to join the PAC Facebook, you just go to facebook.com and click on or /Facebook is what the address is. It's groups rather /groups/PAC Alliance. And you can also go to the PACalliance.us site, and there's Facebook tabs or markers on the top of the page, and to the left also there's Facebook markers that will take you to the Facebook group. And just if you're a Facebook member, of course you have to be to join, but you have to be approved because it is a closed group. And right now I'm getting about 4 or 5 friends a day in the last couple of weeks, because I've been working, educating people on Facebook, and we're getting about 10 people a day right now on the group. It's grown considerably in the last month, about 100 people.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah,
that is.
It's exponentially getting larger every day because word's getting out. And, when I explain things, it's backed up with facts. So people are, thank God, seeing, the smarter ones are, seeing that, they've been deceived on some of the issues. Some want to bask in their delusion. I'm just writing about someone that the government doesn't exist according to the UN Charter and Geneva Convention. We don't have governments, so that's ridiculous. I'm saying they've been entering into treaties. So why would you say such a thing? So, people have so many misconceptions about everything out there.
Right. It seems to be
just bad.
It seems to be the norm to have a misconception about stuff. And I'll admit, I know the way out. I know to me, it's not going to be a difficult transition from slave to being myself, if you will. The thing that gets me is, and maybe we can address this in a later show, LB, but that retirement thing, having money set aside for your later years. I'm guessing you've actually solved that problem.
The which one? I'm sorry.
Retirement.
Retirement? Well, like I told someone today, someone's thinking about retirement. I go, she's 30, and I'm going, retirement, that's a 14th Amendment citizen thing. The Bible, for example, says we work till we die. So.
Okay.
This is total mind shift and paradigm shift,
Yeah.
Cradled. Everyone's been raised cradle to grave to be a socialist. A human resource consumer is technically what everyone is, but this is total mind shift.
Right.
That's a big part of the money.
It's a rebirth. Yeah,
right.
It's a rebirth for people. So.
Last 30 seconds, guys. I'd like to thank you very much, LB, for being with us tonight and imparting all your knowledge. Thank you very much, Lawrence, for being with us and imparting your knowledge. Thank you, all the listeners, for listening, and everybody on the chat room for being there. Last words?
Thank you.
Good night, all.
It's a pleasure.